So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got a great guest from a great movie. In 1984, this movie changed the world as it was. It's, of course, the awesome Ghostbusters, and we've got a great guest that was involved in this iconic movie. It's, of course, Bryan, the master creature fabricator and special effect artist. Billy, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I keep on wanting to say Bryan because your surname is Bryan and it's spelt the same way.
You've got a weird first name.
I know. First, imagine being called Bryan. Who knows? It could have happened. So normally, before we talk about your awesome career, I normally ask, because the last 2 years have been challenging to say the least across the globe. It's something that affected us around the world. How have you kept positive and kept moving forwards over the last 2 years amongst this horrid pandemic?
Actually, I'll have to admit, I have kept negative.
Okay. That's good.
Yes, I've gotten my vaccinations every time they were available. I think I've got 4 of them in me now. I've worn my mask almost everywhere I've gone, so that's a good way to stay. Actually, my blood type is B positive, and so it's just sort of natural to be positive. But I've been avoiding the pandemic, and I've been getting a lot of work too, because a lot of the things I can do at home.
That is awesome. I mean, I've had COVID twice now, but I've had all my vaccines. So I think I'm collecting points on the amount of time, but I'm still here, and thank goodness for the vaccine and the work that the NHS do in the UK. I think they're all absolutely amazing, and they've done a stellar job. So talking about your career, so I mentioned master creature fabricator. Before we talk about that, what is your origin story? You know, where did Billy Bryan start out? Because your career is so awesome to read. It really is. I mean, as a young boy, did you always want to follow this path in this industry that you chose?
No, it was a big surprise, I have to admit. When I was in high school, I did watch a show called Muppets on Puppets that Jim Henson and Frank Oz put together in a basement of a church in, I think, in Boston, maybe. Anyway, I say Boston because it was on WGBH TV that I saw it, our educational station. I come from a family of 7 siblings, and my mom and dad were both very artistic. Dad sang opera, and he photographed magnificently, and then did paintings and drawings from them, and I followed in that line of work as well. Now, when I watched the Muppets on Puppets show, it wasn't in order to learn how to build a Muppet, but at the end of the show, they did show how to work with foam. And when I saw how simple it was, it was just right for me, because the foam does a lot of the work there. You only have to do so much of the math and let the foam absorb some of the nuances. I started there. I went to Syracuse University after high school. I had already been making some puppets. I had already been making some costumes when I went to Syracuse, but I went there as a metalsmithing major. I went to learn how to bang on gold and silver and stuff. And then by the time I got to the end, I did graduate. I did get my degree, my fine arts degree. But the last year, I'll admit that my metal teacher was very kind to me. He said to me, Bill, I can't believe that you haven't been doing anything this year. Could you just show me what it is that you've been doing? And so a parade of characters marched into the metal shop there at Syracuse, and he looked at him and said, all right, you've been busy. You get an A. So while I was there, because I had been doing Halloween costumes to pick up a little bit of extra money, I would go do their contests at bars, and then I could buy drinks and stuff. And so some of my friends knew that I did that, and because Syracuse is a very heavy school in communication arts, the Newhouse School of Communication is right there. And so some of the friends were working on a project for a class. It was a plant food commercial. And they came to me and said, hey, could you build a plant costume for us? And so I said, sure, sounds like fun. It's going to cost you $50 for materials. And so I put together this cool costume. It had leaves with serrated edges that came around the face, and there were roots on stockings, and the body was kind of pineapple shaped. It was made out of repeated hexagonal pieces that kind of blended together, and then mathematically worked out to achieve the form. So I handed it over to them. I wasn't there for the shoot, but the guy doing the announcing on the commercial was a friend named Bruce Tufeld, and his father, Dick Tufeld, did the voice of the Lost in Space robot. And
I love that show.
I heard, actually, well, the director at the end of the commercial went running into the control booth and said, so what do you think, Mr. Tufeld? Is there a place for me in Hollywood? And he said, no, but there's a place for the guy that made that costume. And I heard about that a couple of days later at a party, and I thought, what? Wait, huh? You mean I don't have to be an impoverished silversmith on Cape Cod? Maybe. Anyway, I sent Dick Tufeld a letter. It was, at the time, the post office would accept a big triangle folded letter. And it had a picture of the plant costume on it. And it said, hey, I heard you said this about that. And were you serious? And he called me back about a month later. It was my first continental phone call. And he said, look, I don't hire. I don't do this, but I was really impressed with your work, and yeah, I think you could make a go of it here. So soon as I had graduated, I put together about $300 so that I'd have a serious nest egg, and I got aboard my bicentennial rocket thumb. It was 1976, and you remember we had a little dust up back then, and. Across the country, hitched across the country, hopped some freights to get the rest of the way there when the rides ran out, when I got to the desert. And when I got there, I called Dick. I said, hey, I decided to follow your advice. He said, well, why don't you come on up for dinner? So I did. Went up to dinner. His nephew, I think, is a pro football player, hand egg player to you, football being something very different here. And we had a wonderful meal there with his nephew or cousin or whatever, and we got a rundown on what the business might be like. And then a couple of weeks later, Dick went into CBS, and he told a lady in wardrobe that he knew somebody who was doing what I do, and she said send him in. I went in and I got some good numbers to call, and ended up working at NBC, not CBS, for about 5 years. And the rest is mystery.
And what would you say, Billy? What would you say is your secret to your success?
I saw Neil Gaiman do a matriculation speech from an art school a few years ago, and he said what I'm going to say, that in business, in art, it was an art school, you have to have three things. You have to be good, fast, and pleasant to work with. And he said, even if you're not that good on one of them, as long as you got two, fast and good, good and easy. The other one can slide a little. Well, coming into NBC, which is television, Johnny Carson would want a gag by tonight. And so it had to be done right away. And that helped a lot. So that got me up to fast. I'm just naturally good. And I'm fairly pleasant to be around. So, that's my secret.
Awesome. I mean, would you say, obviously, Ghostbusters, which you can see at the bottom of your screen there in big writing, would you say Ghostbusters was your first sort of big break into the business?
In a way, it was. I had been there at NBC for 5 years, and that took me till about 81. I was told that they just didn't have any more work for me, and that I could probably make a little more money out there in the real world. And so I got out there and started looking around. I worked for Sid and Marty Krofft. I don't know if you remember them with the HR Puffin stuff and Sigmund the Sea Monster and various shows like that they had on. Big puppet costume shows where, there was even Lidsville, which was about hats. Everybody's a hat. There's, I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So they were working on a show. Actually, Barbara Mandrell had the Mandrell show, or Barbara Mandrell show, and they had some puppets in that. And Barbara's sister, Earlene, wanted to go out on the road and be a star too. And Sid, Marty, said, stick with me, little girl, and I'll make you a star. And so it was on the heels of that. I went in, helped them rebuild the Texas Critters so that those puppets could go on the road with Earlene. And while there, I met a great guy named Mark Siegel, who was hired to sculpt on another show. I was doing foam fabrication, and Mark was sculpting in clay. The next job that Mark got was from Don Post Studios. You might know them from the masks, the Universal horror masks. Anyway, they had originally been in showbiz, got into mask biz, and wanted to try another foray in showbiz. And they'd gotten the job to make still suits for Dune. Mark was hired to sculpt the still suits, and he said, I don't think that's the right way to do it. He said, I think they should be fabricated. Well done. You're good at that. There I am on the right. Mark Siegel is on the left. And in the middle is Jerry Goodman, world-famous violinist from such bands as The Flock and the Mahavishnu Orchestra at the time. And now he's been with various other groups since then. And he wasn't working at the time, so I said, he was my upstairs neighbor. I used to hear him practicing his Paganini in the morning. Oh, wow. And so I said, hey, Jerry, you want to help build still suits? And he came in, and he was one of the approximate 10 folks, I guess we had, gluing all those little pieces together onto the leotards. And so one of the folks that we hired there was named Linda Frobos. She also is a clay sculptor more than a foam fabricator, but she took the gig. And then her next job was on a little show called Ghostbusters. And I didn't know. I was working on another little project for Don Post. We were making silly rubber hats that had, I don't know, there was a brain hat that had kicked the whole thing off, a thinking cap. There was also a, can I say shithead? If not, you can bleep it out.
No, you can say whatever you want.
Don actually told me he has a picture of O.J. Simpson wearing a shithead hat. And he said at the time, my wife always said that I'm a shithead. So I don't know if that led to anything, but Linda called Don to get my number, but I was there delivering one of those hats, the sculpture thereof. So he handed me the phone, and she said, people here are wondering how how to make a giant Marshmallow Man costume. And I started to tell her how. And she said, well, tell you what, why don't you come on in and talk to them about it? So I gathered up my stuff next day or so and wandered over, talked to Stuart Ziff, who was the head of the creature shop. And also in the interview were Randall William Cook, who is an amazing stop motion animator. He did the Terror Dog animation as well as sculpture, and the little Terror Dog, not the big one. Linda and Mike Hosh and various others did the big one. And also Steve Johnson was the other interviewer there, and the four of us sat there and yammered about making stuff, and they invited me to stick around and start making Marshmallow Man. And so I started by you don't have a picture of the maquette, do you? There's a couple of little clay sculptures. You can see them if you get the Making of Ghostbusters book on page 99. That's the beginning of my little Stay Puft chapter, and on a shelf behind me where I look like I'm sculpting the head of the Marshmallow Man, but I was sculpting a head of a Marshmallow Man. Linda Frobos eventually sculpted the real thing, but I just was trying to get a feel for scale and such. But on the shelf behind me are the two maquettes that I did the first day. And then I was told, hey, you're working too fast. So anyway, we made several versions. I tried carving the foam to try to avoid having seams, but it ends up pretty rough. I mean, you can sand it down, but it's a very long, arduous process. So we ended up building the suits out of sheet foam. There's the half-inch layer of 100-pore white Scott foam on the surface, and then on the inside it's another foam. It's called L200. I'll be right back. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a project I'm working on right now, I'm making it out of L200, so you can get an idea for what kind of foam that is. Well, this is just 1/8 inch thick, but we use 3/4 inch as an egg. In fact, there's even a picture of us sitting in egg-shaped internal pieces from a variety of Mr. Stay Puffs. Now, I wore the suit in the opening shots. Actually, the very first shot, it was just the head, and so I wasn't wearing the whole suit, but just the head. And the first time you see Stay Puft, it's behind buildings, right? You just see the head bobbing along. They wanted the head and the buildings in focus, so I couldn't wear the suit because that would have pushed me too far away from the buildings. So I just wore this T-shirt. It was a Michelin T-shirt. I had several, and I still have. Actually, one's in the Hollywood Museum right now in the Ghostbusters show, because there's in that first opening shot as the head bounces along behind the buildings. We thought you wouldn't see the fact that I wasn't wearing the suit, but there is one alleyway between the buildings where, for a flash, it's like 4 frames, you can see the Michelin Man on on the front of the shirt. And so it was sort of subliminal advertising. And I still haven't gotten my check from Michelin, and I'm kind of mad about it.
I mean, did you ever think this character would be so iconic years on?
I thought it was kind of silly, to be honest. I called my mom and said, Mom, I got a part in a movie. She said, oh, that's great. What are you? Well, it's a sort of a giant Marshmallow Man. Oh, that's nice, dear. That's She was positive about it. Dad, maybe a little less so. I remember back when I first started doing puppets, and because I didn't study for my midterms, instead I put together a puppet show, and I made all of $5. Dad said, "Oh, great! So now you're going to be a puppeteer for the rest of your life." Seemed like a good idea at the time. It seems to be working out. So, no, I didn't know for sure. I knew that the movie would be funny because when I read the script, I only knew that Bill Murray was in it, so I just read every line in my head in his voice, and it was hilarious. And that was without the ad libs. So I knew it would be big, but I had no idea it would be that big.
And it's carried on for many years, even with Afterlife, which is a new film. I mean, obviously, it's moved on to CGI now, which personally, I'm not a massive fan of. I like practical effects. It was the same with Star Wars. You know, the originals I just absolutely love because they're more believable because they're practical effects. So do you think CGI is destroying, you know, what you do? And yeah.
We thought it would be. Actually, that question always gets asked during Q&As at conventions when I'm there signing. And so I like to ask or answer with a question. I ask the audience, how many people out there like cartoons? Everybody raises their hands. How many people out there want every movie you ever see from now on to be a cartoon? And the hands all come down because there's always an element of that in the CG. I mean, yes, it can be done really, really well. We've seen that in Jurassic Park, for instance, by combining practical and CG, then you get the best of both worlds. Doc Ock, which I helped puppeteer on in Spider-Man 2, not in the latest multiverse, because that one went all digital. But yeah, we ended up doing everything within 4 feet was practical, and everything beyond that, John Dykstra took over with his CG. Now, one of the things I like to say, again, you said I can say anything, right? Because one of the things I feel about CG versus practical effects, I feel the same way about CG that I feel about silicone boobs. Because if you see really great effects, let's say, nowadays you're just going to assume that they're CG.
Mm. Yeah, it's true. And you know what? It's like scene painters. You know, the artists that used to do the backgrounds on like the glass, and that's like a dying art because literally it's all done computer now, which is sad.
It is. It's unfortunate, but hey, you know what? Can't stop progress.
Yes, that is true.
Now, Arjen Tweeten, who did the effects for Afterlife, called me up before it came out. He asked me out to lunch, and he admitted to me that when he had seen the mini Marshmallow Men in the script, he said, "We got to get Bill." And then he went to Jason and said, "We got to get Bill." And Jason said, "That would be great, but it's already in the pipeline. It's already been assigned to the CG, and they've got somebody already probably ZBrushing it up or something." And so it didn't end up happening. I'm told that on the next one, I'll get a call.
Oh, that is awesome. That would be awesome because it's quite nice, isn't it, to sort of get some recognition of being part of the OG, as they say. I mean, did you watch Afterlife? What did you think of it?
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I felt like they did what they had to do. They needed to get through a transition, a what do they call it? The passing of the baton. We I mean, I think it was a tiny bit lame. The here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Oh, look, there's guys here. They can do it. It was I don't know. It felt like the ramping up could have been a little more gently done, perhaps, or effectively for that little moment. But hey, I'm not trying to lose my job on the next one. So,
but to be honest, I thought the movie was wonderful because of obviously my age and watching the original,
yes.
And obviously for Harold as well. I thought, well, there wasn't a dry eye in that cinema.
Oh,
it
was
really
very
wasn't.
effective.
And I just thought it was awesome, and to see the original Ghostbusters, appear, for me, literally, I nearly stood up and cheered. So it's quite nice that we're revisiting that nostalgia. But apart from being the Marshmallow Man and making that costume, which I think I'm going to put another picture up, because you did you work on the miniature sets?
I'm standing on the miniature set in that costume.
Ah, there you go. What was that like? I mean, the visibility in that costume must have been near enough zero.
Well, actually, I looked out through the mouth.
Okay.
And so it was, there was a black screen, but that doesn't really cut down that much visibility. And so I could see in front of me. I couldn't see down. I couldn't see my feet because I'm rotund. And so my assistant, Diana Heyman, she was down below polishing my feet to make sure that it looked good, because they were, they were the most at risk part. When you walk, you're bound to hit some dirt.
Yeah.
So we made one suit for me, and then we made about at least 8. I've said 18, but I don't think that's true. We made a whole bunch of suits, because every time you light up a suit, it burns. Mm-hmm. And it only it's only effective for a few seconds, partly because Joe Viscoso, the pyro guy, may he rest in peace, under Thane Morris, our head pyro guy, but he's still kicking. And I just saw him recently. I'll tell you in a minute. But Joe Viscoso would make these little cigarette butt-sized mortars. They were really just paper tubes with a little bit of black powder and a little bit of strontium inside. And as it burnt, the black powder would go off, the strontium would be launched, and strontium burns red. So we get all these little rockets coming off the chest of Stay Puft. You see them, there were front view shots, there were back view shots, there were side view shots. The zipper on the suit is on the side away from camera. So, for instance, for this shot right here, the zipper would be down my back. And that was where it was on the suit that mostly I wore. But then Tony Cesar, who's a famous burn guy, they brought him in. He did The Thing. He did Jason, this and that, Friday the 13th. Lot of burns. I think that maybe Chucky, I forget. Anyway, so Tony came in to do those shots, and you put on a suit. He would dip his undersuit in his gel, slip it on, put on the suit, put on his supplied air helmet, and then put the head on over that. He was told, don't worry, no flame's going to get inside. It's solid. He said, nope, I'll do it my way. And he was glad he did, because there were moments when he saw flames between him and the head. So it was good to know that he was well protected and a professional and not dying. So now about the front view and back view and side view suits, that half-inch layer that I was telling you about that goes over the L200 layer, it's just stretched, and the wrinkles and seams are hidden under the arms, under the bib, and then it finishes right about here, that far, just past the horizon. And so then there's another piece of foam added in the back just to complete the coverage, but you would never see that because it's on the side away from camera. There were some other things that I did to avoid seeing seams. The hat was it was sculpted and cast, so it had a seam halfway across. And so if it were rotated perpendicular to the camera, then you would see that seam. So for side view shots, I would cut the bulge of the hat off, rotate it 90 degrees, and glue it back to the hat band with Stay Puft on it. And that way, the seam would always be parallel to the frame, and you would not see it.
Wow.
What else?
Wow. Do you know what? We're getting such a great insight into the Marshmallow Man. Question is, though, so you mentioned there's one in a museum. Do you know if there's any, existing pieces left?
I don't know. I mean, the one I mentioned that they said might be in a museum. I know the one suit that survived, because it's the one I wore and didn't burn. It did go for a visit to Japan in 86 or 87, something like that. And at the time, Japan had all the money. International economics being the way they are, it comes and goes in various places, and they were doing really well at the time. And so my theory was anyway that, and my hope was that some rich Japanese collector had it in a hermetically sealed container in an air-conditioned museum. That would be great, his own personal or something. At least then it wouldn't be gone. But I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose at the time, that these prop masters or the people that's looking after the costumes at the moment in time, they don't think it's going to be an iconic piece 20, 30, 40 years down the line. So it's quite nice to see pieces pop up. I mean, the sponsors of my show is Prop Store, and they've got an auction a couple of times a year, and they deal with screen use props and costumes. So it's nice to see when things pop up from iconic shows and films like Ghostbusters. But you have worked on so many projects. I could be here all week naming them, but to name a few, you've worked on Chucky, Men in Black, Dune, Species, Jurassic Park 3, Sorcerer's Apprentice, which I think is a great film, and even Jackass Forever, which I think's awesome from your IMDb. I mean, what's been the most challenging project that you've worked on?
The one I'm the most proud of is Men in Black. It's the grouchy guy. There he is. I figured out a way to use plastic bags to make effects. And so that's an inflated baggie, really, or lots of baggies. I'm inside of that. Mom said, don't pull a plastic bag over your head, but I did it anyway. I made some money at it. This was Slug Guy. Rick Baker was already involved in the project when he said to the producers and director, Barry Sonnenfeld, he said, this is a movie about aliens. Shouldn't there be a scene where there's a bunch of aliens? And so they went ahead and wrote in this airport scene. Then they said, okay, get busy. And he said, I can't do it. I'm too busy with the Edgar bug and the various other pieces that I had already been assigned. So it became kind of like the world's coolest Halloween costume contest, kind of. All the shops in town got a couple of pieces. We had 3 actually at Steve Johnson's shop where I was working. And there was Slug Guy, Scared Guy, and Jellyfish Guy. And you see them go by. Carlos Fuentes had done a drawing of all these creatures standing in line. And so we just went through and picked 3, and those were the ones. Rick said to Steve, I would really like it to be translucent, but that would probably make it prohibitively heavy. And Steve said, I don't think that's going to be the problem. So it wasn't. The problem was that it hissed like a lot of snakes, because we had compressors and vacuum cleaners blowing air into this thing. I tried making silencers, and they sort of worked, but I made them out of like plastic water bottles. And I looked up the technology behind gun silencers, and I figured out how I could at least redirect the air flow to make it a little less hissy. But still, it was noisy, and Barry Sonnenfeld wanted it off his set. So as soon as we got started, he said, all right, here's your line. This is what you get. You become Slug Guy, or Grouchy, don't get too close to him. He's grouchy. And then you're done. You're out. You're gone. And so and we finished it up pretty quickly. I did get asked to.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
I got asked to come back and puppeteer again later on the Edgar bug, but Steve Johnson already had me assigned to build a Statue of Liberty costume for a commercial for New York in Vegas, and so I told him I couldn't take the gig. And then Steve found out how much I could have been making as a puppeteer, and he said, "Oh wait, tell him you'll take it. We'll figure something out." So I called again. They said, "Sorry, we already reassigned it." And so Steve said he'd give me a raise till it was done. So that was okay. And then I found out that Edgar bug got turned CG, and so I wouldn't have gotten any puppeteering on it anyway. So I got my raise.
That is
so
awesome.
it worked out pretty.
Looking back over your career, because again, you've worked on so many things. What's the one thing that you wish you knew when starting your career that you know now?
Oh, well, I wish I knew how to bid. I didn't learn that at Syracuse. I should have. I could have, but I was a metalsmithing major, not a costume foam guy. I was doing sculpture, or calling it sculpture, when I was making these costumes. So when I first came to L.A., the first gig that Dick Tufeld tried to get me, he went to his buddy over at on the Mickey Mouse Club at Disney, and I went in and talked to a fellow, and he said, "So the plant costume looks great. How much would it cost, and how long would it take?" Geez, it didn't take me any time. And so, that's not a professional response. So it wasn't really. Well, that's why it took me another couple of weeks, or another week or so, before I actually got working there in town, because NBC was willing to just give me a salary and then let them reap the benefits.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that one.
But so let's talk about conventions, because you're coming over to the UK on is it July the
8th to 10th of July.
Yes, to the London Film and Comic Con, and you've done quite a few, if I'm right in saying, with the help of Cool Water Productions with the wonderful Derek, which has helped me arrange this interview. So a massive shout out to them. Do you like doing conventions? What's the greatest thing about doing them?
The greatest thing about conventions is I get to go places, and I get to see people that really enjoy the stuff. I enjoy. I mean, you hear how I rattle on. People come over for an autograph, and they get an earful.
That's awesome.
But I can't help it.
No, that is really good, because there's some people at conventions, literally, it's like a conveyor belt. You go up and you've got to think these people have saved money to go up and get an autograph or get a picture with you. And it's quite nice to hear that you take time with them, because, Ghostbusters, for instance, has made an impact in so many people's lives, as well as mine. I think the film is absolutely glorious. What
years ago.
What's that? Sorry?
38 years ago.
It's shocking, isn't it, to think?
Say that it's always amazing to me.
It was shocking because I watched Maverick, Top Gun Maverick the other night, and then thinking back of when the original came out, it's 36 years, I think it is. And
86?
Yeah, 86, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is there anything that you don't like about conventions, or do you just love them?
Well, my fear is, obviously right now COVID is now a way of life, and hopefully just that. And yeah, it's a little scary. I'll have to admit it. I'll probably be masked. And sorry about that, y'all. It'd be great to see my happy, smiling face, but it's going to be covered with something.
Which is fine.
Yeah,
which is fine. I mean, the UK, our pandemic over here is reduced massively, and I think that's because of the uptake of vaccinations and people actually following guidance. So we don't hear much about COVID anymore. But there's nothing wrong with masking up. I mean, it's your safety. You're going into a place that's going to have thousands upon thousands of people, so your risk has been heightened. And I'm sure that people can watch this interview and see your fantastic beard, because I'm just jealous. I wish I could grow a beard like that. Mine's just...
Let me tell you about my beard. My beard deserves its own IMDb page, because I've been giving it to my friend Sasha Camacho Van Dyke, who is the wife and hair specialist at Vincent Van Dyke Effects shop. And so when it reaches a certain length, I take it all off, and then I give it to them. I mean, they say I could get some money for it, but I don't know. It feels weird. So instead, what I ask is just keep track of what it goes into. So, you ready?
Yep.
Macbeth, Denzel Washington's severed head at the very end of Macbeth has some of my beard as some of his beard. The Outer Range, Josh Brolin grew his own little goatee, and then they shot the whole series, I guess, and then he got another gig, shaved, and they suddenly called him for some pickups, and so Sasha made a goatee for Josh. Oh, now this one, am I allowed? Well, they have started showing pictures of Bradley Cooper as Leonard Bernstein. I don't know if I'm allowed to reveal anything about any beards that might show up in a movie like that. So, but if there were one, it's all made out of mine.
That is, and you're right. You should have your beard should have its own IMDb. That is the most bizarrest and greatest story I've heard. Honestly, your beard is literally Josh Brolin, Denzel Washington, and Bradley Cooper. That is absolutely awesome.
Actually, I'm sorry, I have to interject. I did just build the Gorilla Glue gorilla again, and there's some in there too.
That's awesome.
I made sure that they included some.
So your beard is everywhere, basically, which is awesome. So the 8th to the 10th of July. Have you got any plans on coming over earlier to do a bit of sightseeing?
We're coming over on the 6th. We're leaving on the 14th. We have some good friends, the Bueno, Anthony and Claire Bueno, brother and sister, who produced and directed the Cleaning Up the Town documentary. We got to be good friends talking about that here. And then I've seen them various places. Let's see. I'm bringing my girlfriend. So we don't want to just only be on an airplane and in a hotel and in a convention center. So, we're going to grab a few extra days.
Well, luckily you're coming in July because there's a massive train strike on the 21st, 23rd, and 25th of June. So you're quite lucky you're coming just after that because I'm off to the Royal Albert Hall to see Superman the movie being played with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. So I don't know how I'm going to get down there, but it's going to be a mission because it's on the day that they've got the strike. But do you know what? I wish you. Sorry?
You usually take the trains?
Well, down to London. So I'm in Mansfield here, which is right next to Nottingham. So we're about 3.5 hours drive from London. But if you catch a train, it takes about an hour and 10 minutes, which is wonderful. And then they announced the strike, and I was like, no, it's like it was never meant to be because it's already been cancelled from, I think it was last year because of the pandemic. So hopefully, I mean, I will get down there even if I've got to walk. If it's still on, I'm that determined. But Billy, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for coming on. We've had a wonderful insight. It is, I'm looking at the time. Unfortunately, I've got a night full of interviews. We've been on nearly an hour. But do you know what? It's been lovely, and I'd love to have you on again in the future because, I think we've only scratched the surface of your career. Okay. And do you know what I really like is sorry, go on.
I thought this might be a good opportunity for me to suggest to the audience that if they'd like to see my resume wrap, have you seen it? No. It's on YouTube. And it's under Bill Bryan's, you see how to spell it, Bill Bryan's Resume Wrap, R-A-P, not W-R-A-P. And when you go on, the thumbnail is the Hollywood sign. It just happened to be in the middle. But it's in 2016 for the, what was the other one? Answer the Call? No, I forget. Well, Answer the Call. For when that movie opened, I went to Japan to also sign some autographs and also interview a little bit. And while standing there in front of a theater full of aficionados, somebody asked me, "We know you did The Marshmallow Man, but what else have you done?" And I had a logjam. There was too much to say. I didn't know how to say it. And so I decided that would never happen again. And so I started writing and then compiling little snippets of the movies. It starts, I've been a schmello, been a schweezel, been a bitch in a pit. Chucky wasn't done until I done my bit. And it goes on from there. And you can see that if you'd like there.
I will put the link under this video, and I urge everyone, because just from that, I think it's going to be an awesome video to watch. But yeah, so the 8th to the 10th of July, everyone near London or close, get down there, meet Bill Bryan, get your Marshmallow Man. I mean, do people mainly get the pictures signed with Marshmallow Man, or do you have a bit of Chucky? Or do you get a bit of Army of Darkness?
I get a few of each. More of Ghostbusters, of course. Sorry, my phone just distracted me. I should turn it over. What was that? Oh, they usually bring Funkos, things like that, Funko Pop, that sort of thing. And so I've developed a way of writing on these, or anyway, the various toys, a lot of those. Yeah, usually I'll just say to whomever and stay puffed and sign my name. So that's what you'll get. Not just a
yeah, not like an Al Pacino, which is just like a circle. But no, that's great news. And as I said a moment ago, I'd love to have you on again in the future, because seriously, I think we've only just scratched the surface of your career, and I love the fact that I want to give light to the people behind the camera, the people that do all the hard work, to make these creatures come to life, and all the work that happens behind the camera, because I think sometimes for the viewers we don't see that. We don't see the magic that actually happens behind the scenes.
Did you see Jackass 4.5 on Netflix maybe?
I think I've seen them all. Yeah, is it the documentary about the film?
It's the behind the scenes for Jack.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's the one where you do get to see behind the scenes more than in the actual movie. Although
good. It's good. They're all getting a bit older. I don't know if obviously you've been involved. Johnny Knoxville is looking like he shouldn't be doing half the stuff he's doing. But it's always going to be entertaining. It really is. Right. Thank you so much. Look after yourself, Billy.